I still remember that afternoon. The heat, the silence, and the way my father's footsteps echoed down the hallway. He was a man of few words and even fewer smiles. His entire life was built around discipline, waking up before sunrise, working 2 jobs, never missing a single day no matter how tired he was. People respected him. They called him a man of principle. But to me, he was a storm I never understood. At 14, I was the opposite. Careless, playful, more interested in drawing cartoons on my notebooks than solving equations. My father believed grades were the measure of a man's worth. To him, success was survival. That day, I brought home my midterm report card. I had failed 2 subjects, science and mathematics. My hands trembled as I held that thin piece of paper. I could already imagine his face, the disappointment, the deep sigh, the silence that came before the punishment. So I did something foolish. I lied. I changed the marks using a blue pen, replacing the red F with shaky A's. I told myself it was harmless, just a little ink, just this once. I just wanted to see pride in his eyes. When he came home that evening, his clothes smelled of iron dust and sweat. His hands were rough from work. He placed his lunchbox on the table, sat down, and said, "Show me your report card." My chest tightened. I handed it over, trying to smile. He read it once, then twice. Then his eyes narrowed. He ran his thumb over the ink, the one that I had used to cover the red marks. The paper caught the light, revealing what I thought I had hidden. His voice was calm. "Did you write this?" I couldn't answer. My throat closed up. "Did you lie to me?" he asked again. When I didn't respond, he stood slowly, unbuckled his belt, and said softly, not in anger, but disappointment, "You know what happens when you lie." The sound of the belt slicing through air filled the room. He didn't shout, he didn't curse, he just hit me once, twice, enough for me to feel shame more than pain. I cried, I begged, I promised I'd do better, but he didn't listen. He walked away in silence, his face unreadable. That night I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, my back burning, my heart aching. I told myself I'd never forgive him. I thought he punished me because he hated me, but I didn't know then that every strike came from a place I couldn't yet understand.
After that night, our home became a battlefield of silence. He'd sit at the breakfast table reading the newspaper while I'd eat quickly, desperate to escape. He'd ask about school, but I'd answer with one word: fine. Mom tried to fix things, but she couldn't bridge the distance. She'd place his tea in front of him, glance at me with soft eyes, and whisper, "He only wants the best for you." But how could pain ever be love? At 16, I started to drift, hanging out with friends who laughed at rules, who called my father old-fashioned. I began to believe them. He came home one evening and saw me playing video games instead of studying. He didn't shout. He just looked at me, that same quiet disappointment, and said, "Every wasted minute costs you something you can't get back." I rolled my eyes. "You wouldn't understand." He didn't respond, just walked away. That silence hurt more than any punishment, because silence means you've stopped trying. Months passed like that. He stopped attending my school events. He left money on the table instead of asking if I needed anything. But every night, I'd hear him cough in his room, a harsh, heavy sound that shook the walls. I never asked if he was okay. I was too proud. Then one morning, I found his work shirt stained with blood, a small red patch near the collar. I stared at it, confused, but said nothing. He still went to work the next day, still returned late, still pretended everything was fine. I mistook endurance for stubbornness. I didn't realize It was courage. He wasn't silent because he didn't care. He was silent because he didn't want me to see how much pain he was in.
I was 24 when the truth came crashing down. One evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice shook. "Your father collapsed at work. They've taken him to the hospital." The words froze me. I hadn't spoken to him properly in years. When I reached the hospital, he looked nothing like the man I remembered. He was thinner, weaker, tubes in his arms, oxygen mask covering half his face. His chest rose and fell with effort. The doctor said he's been sick for years. Lung cancer, stage 4. He refused treatment. I stared at him in disbelief. Refused treatment? Why? I asked. The doctor sighed. He said he couldn't afford to stop working. Said his son was in college. He needed to keep paying for him. My legs went weak. All those years I thought he didn't care. He was dying quietly just to keep me alive. When he opened his eyes, he smiled faintly. "You came," he whispered. I sat beside him, speechless. He pointed toward his bag on the chair. "Notebook, inside." I opened it. Inside was his handwriting, page after page about me. My grades, my habits, my birthday gifts, even the lie I told that day years ago. On one page, the words hit me like thunder. He lied about his marks today. I had to punish him. I hated myself for it, but he must learn to survive without me. I don't have long left. Tears blurred my vision. He knew. He had known all along. I looked at him, this man that I had hated, feared, misunderstood, and realized he was never angry at me. He was scared. Scared that when he was gone, I wouldn't know how to stand. He reached for my hand weakly, his grip trembling. He said, "I wasn't angry, son. I just wanted you to be strong." That was the last full sentence he ever said to me. He passed away 2 days later. No big speeches, no tears in front of anyone. Just quiet departure, the way he lived. At the funeral, I stood beside his coffin, my hands shaking, my heart full of things I'd never said. The sky was gray, the air heavy with unspoken apologies. I thought about every night I ignored his advice. Every time I rolled my eyes at his silence. Every word I threw at him in anger. Now, there was nothing left but echoes. When I went home, the house felt colder. His slippers by the door, his watch on the table, the faint smell of tobacco in the air, everything screamed of his absence. Then I found his notebook again. On the last page, written in trembling handwriting, were the words that shattered me completely. It wasn't anger, it was love. 6 words, enough to rewrite my entire life. I sat on the floor for hours, crying like a child. He hadn't been trying to hurt me, he'd been preparing me. Every punishment, every silence, every harsh glance was his way of teaching me to face the world without fear. Years have passed since then. I'm a father now. Sometimes when my own son messes up, I hear that old instinct, that same urge to raise my voice. But then I remember my father, his silence, his strength, his love. And instead of shouting, I take a deep breath and say quietly, "It's okay, son. Let's try again." Because now I know love isn't always gentle. Sometimes love hurts first and heals later. He wasn't angry.
he was just running out of time to teach me how to survive.